All right, good evening. I'd like to call the Davie County Commissioners meeting of October 4th, 2021 to order. At this time, I see that we're all here, so we will not go formally over the roll call. And at this time, I'll ask Commissioner Jones to lead us in the invocation.
Let us pray. Father, we come here tonight, and as always, we thank you, Father, for in your sovereignty placing us in this greatest and freest of all lands. We thank you for your mercy, your grace, and your goodness. But Father, we do understand that there are those among us who are hurting. There are those among us who are sick. There are those among us who are less fortunate. So, Lord, may we tonight in all we do seek to have servants' hearts, to reach out to all of those, and, Father, to lift them up, and, Father, to bring health and richness of life back to our community. Lord, most of all, we thank you for your ultimate sacrifice that we might be free here tonight. Lord, we thank you for men and women who serve on battlefields, who serve in law enforcement, our EMS and our fire departments, that our streets and our homes might be safe. And we thank you, Father, for blessing us by placing us in this greatest of all counties in this wonderful country. Tonight, Father, we give you praise, glory, and honor. In Christ's name, amen.
Okay, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, appreciate everyone being here this evening. At this time, we will go to the Ethics and Conflicts Disclosure. Mr. Vogler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160A-86 and Davie County Board of County Commissioners Code of Ethics adopted December the 2nd, 2019, I'd ask each of you before you adopt the agenda if there's any actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest with respect to any matter on the proposed agenda which come before the board for a vote at this evening's meeting. If so, please speak up so the board can know before the agenda is adopted. Seeing no one speak up, I conclude there's no actual, potential, or perceived conflicts of interest by any board members with regards to the proposed agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we'll move to adopt the agenda. Would anyone like to make that motion?
So moved. A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. The agenda is approved. Thank you. All right, next we move to the public comment period, and I understand no one has signed up.
That's correct.
Next, we have 4 presentations. So the first one is on GIS applications. I ask Mr. Gallimore to come forward.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to introduce Danny Smith. He works in our department, Technology Solutions, and is our new GIS analyst. And I'm going to let him drive while I talk.
Okay.
It'll work better that way. I'm going to set a timer to make sure I stay on task here. So, why are we presenting this to you? We have been working as Technology Solutions staff on a system to provide better resources to the citizens of Davie County. And this represents quite a bit of work over the last couple of years. And so we're very excited about this. We feel like it's turned into a great resource. And we're going to walk you through some of the work that's gone into this and demonstrate it for you. Not get too far into the weeds, but give you an idea of how it works. We previewed this with a local community group as part of a discussion, and we're invited to talk about it and had some pretty good feedback from it. So this is a work in progress, It's not complete, but we see this as a beginning of a platform that we want to provide additional resources and leverage those things that we already have to make sure that the public has access to this information. This is not going to do away with our existing GIS mapping platform, which is Rock Maps. A lot of information on there, a lot of professionals, real estate and otherwise have come to rely on that as a source of information, as a base of seeing what's going on from the real estate side. This is adding to that, so this is additional resources that we have. This represents a lot of work on the behind the scenes from the very intensive technology aspect with servers and networking and infrastructure, as well as application development. Danny is on the application development side of it, and you're going to get to see some of that fine work that we've done. So to access this, it's very easy. You go to the county website, and up at the top we have departments. And when you hover over departments, you can see all the departments listed there. We go down to Technology Solutions. Once you reach Technology Solutions, we have a new section on our page called New GIS Web Applications. And we're going to name that later on Map Gallery, because that's really what it is. It's a gallery of maps and applications for the public. But just to bring highlight to it, we're calling it New GIS Applications. What you see here, once you reach this page, is really a gallery. It's a lot of different applications that we put together through research and trying to identify what would benefit the public to access this information. And you'll even see this Davie-Yadkin County Line project that we put together a few months ago to help educate the public and draw interest and provide information related to that project. So we have the ability and the technology now that we can add more to this. So we fully expect that we will get requests to add, whether it's from departments or the public, to add what we like to call task-specific apps. Some of our feedback from our current site focuses around the complexity of rock maps. It's hard to find things. Sometimes you have to spend a lot of time looking for things, figuring out what the buttons do. We've focused on making these very simple, user-friendly, and really targeted to what the public and other professionals who look for this information would like to have. So we're going to focus on two, which are kind of what I like to call the wow factor because of the effort and the result that we've achieved from that. First is an aerial image viewer. So you see on the top left in that gallery, when you click on that, it takes you to this new, what we call a web application. On the left-hand side is a panel of information that you can read, and it kind of gives you an idea of how the site will work. On the right-hand side is a list of aerial photography. Now, this is data that we've had for a long time, but we could not put on our rock maps, so we've had to roll those off. Here, we're able to make that available for the public once again, and there's some neat functions and features about this site that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So we're going to start off turning on the 2004 aerials, and I've picked 2004 because that's old enough to kind of show you the difference with what we have today. We've got a search box on the top left. You can just type in a portion of an address. So we're going to zoom into an area that you probably all are very familiar with, and when you type that in, and it can be any portion of an address, so you click on that address when the result comes back up. And we're going to zoom out just a little bit and show you kind of that general area. Now, you may not recognize this. Once that draws up, it looks like a big field, right? But what we're going to do is use the swipe tool. And when you click on the swipe tool, it'll give you the option to do an overlay. In other words, peel back the layers, so to speak. If you're old enough like me, you had transparencies in elementary school, right? So the teacher would draw on it and peel back the layers. So we're going to turn on the 2018 aerials. And what you're going to see is now in the middle of the page is a divider. And that divider will allow you to swipe that page back and forth and see some differences. So we move it to the left. You should be able to recognize that facility. If you don't, it's Davie County High School. If you move it to the right, you'll see that that area at one time was a vacant field. How is this useful? Real estate professionals, economic developers, homeowners, other citizens who are interested in change, right? What's happened in the community. This aerial photography now with overlays in a very simple format will allow you to make that visibility. You know, you can peel those layers back based on the different sets of aerial imagery that we have. So we're going to close this out, and there's a box up on the top right. You close that out, takes you back to the map gallery, and we're going to jump over to planning and development. And we picked this one because, and I'm going to give credit to our Health and Human Services folks, and especially environmental health. And I'm about my time, so I'm going to speed it up. A lot of effort went into building the information that's behind one of the sets of one of the data sets behind it, and that's septic tanks. For so many years, septic tank information has been stuffed in a folder and locked away, and you had to go ask somebody to dig it out. Well, for several years, environmental health has been scanning that information and putting it together so we could make it available. And I'm going to give Danny some credit because he took that information, linked it up with addresses, and now it's available online. So if you're looking for that permit, looking for that historical information, now it's available through this application. So the way this works, you turn on the different layers, and you can search for an address. So we're going to search on a particular neighborhood, which is Heritage Oaks, so Cedarwood. You just start to type a part of the address, and it'll find one of the locations in that neighborhood, and you zoom out just a little bit, and you'll see that, go ahead and turn the aerials on, and the septic tanks, and you'll see that those blue dots represent the permit locations that we've associated with the map. And when you click on one of those blue dots, a little pop-up shows up. There we go. And in that pop-up, which it's a little hard to see because you're at a distance, there's a permit link. And that permit link points to the information that's online and now is visible, linking to the map, which is that connection that we haven't had before. So and it took a lot of effort to bring all that information, scan it all, and then tie it back to an address. A lot of time and effort's gone into that. And this really brings a lot of value, we think, to the resources that you all have graciously funded for us, and we now have the technology to provide out to the public. And we want to do more of that. So our goal is to find what other communities are providing as well. We have a precinct, a voting precinct locator. We have a school dashboard with school demographic information on there. We work with the school system to make sure that that's okay for them, for us to put that on there, that they vetted that information. And so we see this as a resource to make this information available to the public. So we're very proud of the effort that staff has put into this and the results, and it's we're seeing some really good some feedback from it. So just want to share this with you. I think David was excited to see this, and we're glad to share it with everybody, and just hope that you have a chance to look at this. Please let folks know about it. It's there for the public to use, and we're just trying to get the word out. So entertain any questions that you might have.
I don't have any questions. I'm just saying good job, because you hit the nail on the head there with bringing all that information together in one that we get so many questions about, especially from residents, builders, et cetera. Yeah. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So that's all we have. Give us your feedback and let us know if you hear anything positive or negative. It's a work in progress. Thank you very much.
Danny, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I think John illuminated a lot of it. I mean, I was just sort of fortunate enough to come into a position where a lot of this stuff had been already archived, already scanned, already digitized. So it was the work of a lot of people, and yeah, connecting the community to GIS data, that has been a couple of decades at least in the making. So yeah, it's just a very exciting time, especially as everyone loves applications. The more mobile friendly we can make these, the better. So
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have a presentation from the Piedmont Regional Council. I asked Ms. Bedrosian to come up, and I guess there's a couple people.
Nice Job on pronouncing my name. That doesn't happen very often. Thank you for having us here this evening. I'm going to take a nod from the folks that just presented and set a timer as well. So my name is Jennifer Bedrosian, and I work at Piedmont Triad Regional Council as the Food Systems Coordinator. And I've got a
Hi, I'm Conna Miller. I'm the local food distribution coordinator with Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, which is a dual state nonprofit based in Pittsburgh.
And Con is a regional food council member as well and has been a founding member of the Food Council. So we are here today to present to you, we recently completed a regional food system assessment for the 12 counties in the Triad. This was over a year-long project where we collected data and a community engagement process. We were here working in Moxville last summer, doing some surveying, and worked with Tammy over at the farmer's market. It was really fun to be here. We want to present this information to you today and make sure you're aware of it and who we are. And this is going to be a really high-level overview, so there's a lot more here, but we hope, again, that you'll take a look at it and, and use it moving forward. So we just would like to acknowledge that Blue Cross Blue Shield North Carolina Foundation currently it funds the work of the Food Council and also funded this study. And we worked with Carolina Creative Works, who is a consulting group out of North Carolina, to complete the assessment. What we produced was an interactive online report, and if you don't have it already, I'll show you the link for that at the end of this presentation. And we also have a 130-plus page full report that is accessible on our website as well. The approach to our assessment was really looking at all of the data with an equity lens. This was the definition that we used. We were a little bit limited in what we could accomplish due to COVID with community engagement, but what we have here is a baseline and some really good recommendations for how to move forward in our counties. A couple of key pieces that are notable about the assessment is that on this online report, there are a couple of video pieces which are unique to this assessment where you can hear directly from some of the folks that worked on the research. And we also have heat maps, which are organized by zip code that was through a partnership with Second Harvest Food Bank. And additionally, you can get on our website and download your county profile. So each county has one. It looks like this and downloadable right there. So Davie County has a profile which condenses all of that information specific to Davie County. So these are the 5 research buckets that we focused on for the assessment. I won't read them out loud just for time. I think you all can.
Okay. So the first research bucket that we'll dive into is food security. And you can see that for the purpose of our assessment, we sort of, again, had a definition of how we were looking at food security. And some of the key takeaways were that we found that communities of color were at least twice as likely to live in poverty as white communities, with a per capita income between $20,000 and $29,000. In Davie County specifically, we saw that the adult food insecurity rate increased from 12.6% in 2018 to 17.7% in 2020. And for children, it increased by almost 10% higher, going from 19.2% to 28.1% in 2020. And this is the first time we've had granular data about food insecurity. And that, again, was in large part due to our collaboration with Second Harvest Food Bank that Jennifer mentioned earlier, and being able to get these maps, these heat maps that provided zip code breakdown, and so you can really go in and look very specifically at where, this data is, where food insecurity is greater or not so much on very, very granular levels. And so there are some robust efforts underway in our region. We've seen an increase in collaboration across sectors in response to the pandemic, and are seeing new opportunities for increased collaboration for infrastructure and planning efforts. Yeah. And then again, with just that collaboration, we saw really great examples of different ways that people can respond sort of holistically to food security, collaborating across multiple sectors with healthcare, from food banks and local farms. And so one example of that would be with Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, our Farm Share program, which was a statewide effort to purchase local food from local farms and distribute it to households in need, or Second Harvest's Farm Fresh program. Wake Forest also had their Fresh Food RX program.
The next research bucket dealt with community assets and network analysis. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but what these two maps show were where food council, some partners that we can partner with, and also where food councils exist in the triad. There's not currently a local food council in Davie County, but that is something that we would love to help support if there's interest there. So some of the key things that were noted from our maps were that there are opportunities, again, for increased local partnerships and working with transportation and economic developers to focus on recruitment of grocery stores and food businesses, leveraging opportunity zones and other programs to support farm business development and community gardens. And then also, as I mentioned, creating local food councils. We have representation, our goal is to have representation in all of our counties on the regional food council, and we don't currently have representation in Davie County. So if there is anyone that is interested in representing Davie County on our regional council, we are taking applications now. Please pass that word along.
So within farm and food production, we found that in the Triad region, there's over 1 million acres currently being farmed. And so you can kind of see the county breakdown here, and that's also in the county profiles. And so just some high-level highlights. Produce sales were tracked into 3 categories. So you can see here we looked at crop sales, which was things like edible crops, vegetables, animal sales, which was livestock, and then commodity non-edibles, which is things like corn and soybeans. And so some notable trends within food production, we saw that livestock plays a significant role in the food and farm production in our region, but we did also learn and see that processing facilities were greatly impacted by the pandemic. And then within that, the majority of the farms in our region are small farms making less than $100,000 a year. So this creates a really big opportunity for innovation and collaboration with small farmers. And then there is a huge drop in farmland across the region. We're seeing a significant increase in some areas decreasing by 60%. Okay, and then when we look at our region's demographics of who are our region's farmers, we can see that overwhelmingly the majority of the region's farmers principal farm operators are white males, but these numbers do not accurately reflect our region's overall population. It is important to note that farmers of color are significantly underrepresented, between 2 to 3% nationally and regionally of all farmers. Farmers of color tend to not be landowners and are instead tenant workers or farm workers and generate less wealth as such. Okay, so despite all of that, how do we use this data to impact the region? And so we know that we need to develop more meat processing facilities. We really saw from the pandemic that smaller meat processing facilities were able to be more flexible and could adapt to changes faster. And then we also need incentives for small farmers to keep more of their food in the region. We'll touch on that a little bit in a minute. And then offer more measures of protection and incentives to keep farms alive and operating.
All right. We're getting close to our time here, so I'll again talk a little. We'll go through this quickly, but so supply chain, 67% of food consumed in the triad is imported from outside of this region. So that's a pretty notable statistic. There's nothing wrong with importing or exporting food, but it's just, again, it's kind of an opportunity for innovation for small farmers. In Davie County, I have to pull that from here in that county profile. I can tell you what the exact number is, but yeah, so we also noticed some opportunities for innovation with the supply chain, again, with leakage, which is like the deficit between import and export. And then investing in infrastructure. So you may have also seen that in the Presidential Task Force, the County Commissioners report as well, noted that about cold storage as well and investing in infrastructure. Food supply chains bring in over $28 billion in annual sales to the region. Davie County has 183 food businesses and bring in $750 million in annual sales to the county. So it's a viable industry and important to support. What we noticed is that, again, that there are gaps in the intermediary market. So really what that means is like these opportunities for small farmers who are at a farmer's market and they want to upscale their business and they aren't yet quite ready for institutional purchasing or larger markets there. There's opportunities to help and support them through incentives. We know restaurants were hit particularly hard during the pandemic, and again, the cold storage needs across the region. I've kind of already hit on that in the last slide. And just to quickly wrap up, what we are doing as a food council next, our council felt very strongly that we didn't want this report to sit on the table. We wanted to come out into communities and talk to people about what we learned and share the information. And so that's what we're doing here today. We're going around to different Board of Commissioners meetings across the region, as well as university classes and other healthcare organizations to do these presentations. We also are planning council to community listening sessions starting probably in the new year. So we welcome opportunities to work with people on that to continue collecting data. And then this last year, we also started a micro grant shared gifting opportunity, which was, we started in 4 counties, and we will be offering that to the other 8 counties in our region that we work with over the next year. This is the list of all of our current food council members and the one meeting that we had in person last year. And here's the link where you can find the online report if you haven't checked that out. That's me, Jennifer Bedrosian, and my contact information if you have further questions or interested in partnership opportunities or have any information that you'd like to add. We want to continue adding to this data as well. So please reach out. And we thank you so much for your time. Does anybody have some questions?
I do. I have a question.
Yes.
I don't think you came back to it, or if you did, I missed it. Get an example of the incentives you talked about in terms of, and I know that's probably private, those are private market issues, but I would like to hear kind of what your ideas are in terms of those incentives that you were talking about.
Yeah, so I think what we were referring to was, incentive. We have, during that process, we learned that, I don't know if we know, to be honest with you, about what exactly those would look like, but I think that there is, what we learned was there is opportunity to create those. So really working within your community and with local farmers to see what they need and what that looks like. But opportunities to, and Kana may be able to, with CFSA, may be able to talk a little bit more about this, but the opportunities to help them to, say, for example, one of the things that came up was developing a quality management system. So in that can be a safety, how do I describe that?
Yeah, well, they're used a lot in manufacturing, but it's just sort of a streamlined system of procedures, and it can help with food safety, but can also help sort of build more robust marketing and sales. If you are selling to institutions like hospitals or school districts, it can just sort of help keep institutional knowledge in the farm. So when you have, staff coming and going, or, dad retires or something, you don't lose all of the procedures of how you did things. And I think another example could be helping just share with farmers other options for transitioning their farms besides just selling it. If the farmer is retiring, but they want to keep the land and in farming operation, giving them other options.
So create incentives to instead of selling to developers, to try to keep the historic farm, the small family farm, mid-sized farms, going and growing instead of turning them into parking lots.
Yeah, I've heard some interesting places where people have worked with land trusts, obviously, to keep that, and, yeah.
Now, the issue about investing in infrastructure, and I tell you, the reason to me this is so important is, Mr. Walker knows this, one of my good friends, Dale Blackwelder, they closed, they shut down their dairy farm a week or two ago. At one time, Davie County had 200 dairy farms. Now we have none. Small family farms are in peril, and so we need to do everything we can. We're not the private sector, but we need to do everything we can to try to do something to save the small family farm. The investment in infrastructure. You mentioned cold storage. What's that? What does that look like? I mean, what is your outside of that? What else can we do in terms of locally investing in infrastructure to help that small family farm? I'm going to assume that's what you're.
Yeah, well, so what we noticed was that cold storage facilities are available in our region and in the counties, but often are not designated for agriculture. They're for medical use only. So there were opportunities to, so for example, there were farms or organizations, food banks, local programs that maybe wanted to apply for some of the USDA funding where they were creating food boxes to, which has been incredibly successful, I'm sure we all know, during the pandemic and getting food to people. But they couldn't do that because they didn't have places to store the food to keep it for longer periods, fresh food for longer periods of time. So that's the cold storage piece of it. I think additionally, what we noticed about infrastructure was, I'm sure we're all aware about the inadequate, sometimes, especially in rural communities, broadband access. And so access to that, obviously, for all businesses, for people, for farmers as well, small farmers who are promoting a business and had to move to online. So if they're not having internet access, good internet access, they can't respond to that as well. And then, I had another thought. Education as well. So there were gaps in education with even utilizing some of those services.
Well, one of the things we're doing is we're working to get broadband to all of our county, or as much of it as we
Yeah.
possibly can. Now, the last question, I'm going to leave you alone.
No, this is great.
This issue of food insecurity, I mean, based on, and I know the research you did is timely, it's now. But do you think that that's probably, those numbers are going to go back down to more of a normal level after we kind of, if we ever do, kind of process through this COVID issue where people are able to get back to work, supply chains kind of expand and get back to normal? Do you think those numbers naturally will go back down to a normal level, or do you see this as a trend that's not going to subside back to normal levels, just based on your research that you're doing?
I wish I could predict that. I think that what we have noticed after we put, what I know that is what we noticed after we put this research out, is that the numbers that were predicted were maybe not quite as significant as we thought they would be. However, having said that, I think that they were not quite as significant because of all of the programs and supports that have been put in place and that are doing a good job in helping people get food. You know, increase in SNAP benefits, in those food box programs, like really innovative ideas that is getting people food. So if those go away, when those end, if we don't have a way to make up that gap, I don't know that those numbers are going to change. They were high before, and they were higher during the pandemic.
You know, that's a great point. I think the ability to expand those box programs was exceptional. We were actually doing that through our church. Through the Southern Baptist Convention was And we were doing 30 and 40 and 50 of those boxes a week to the community, but that's kind of gone away.
Right.
So, thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm happy. If you all have further questions, please reach out. Happy to come back another time or just answer more questions.
I have a question before
Oh,
you
yeah.
leave, please. So you said that you dealt with Tammy at the farmer's market. Did you speak to the farmers, or did you just go with Tammy? Because, we have 3 farmers market, and that's actually the smaller of the 3.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
We went to the Moxville one and spoke with farmers there, and then also surveyed community members that were coming by. And then additionally, we had an online survey, which, again, with the broadband issue sometimes is not as accessible, but we did have an online survey that was open to all counties as well, and we had participation from all counties. We did some incentives and to help people, ad campaigns and things to help people become aware of that as well.
We also have a farmer's market at Bermuda Run and at Smith Grove, and the Moxville market is the smallest market.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question on the back end as far as end users. I'm aware of a situation, not in this county, but some more global application. A church that was doing, I guess they would compete with Second Food Harvest or Second Harvest and maybe your organization kind of, but they actually went out of business because they didn't find end users for their food. And they were getting tens of thousands of pounds. I mean, it was tons of food they were getting. So my question is there a resource at PTRC that I could connect this particular church with to maybe get that food into an end user?
Is this,
Yep.
are they in North Carolina, or are they in?
No, they're in Davidson County.
Oh, okay.
Not Davie, but
Right.
Davidson, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I would think Second Harvest Food Bank would be a great resource for them, because their service area includes what we're sort of referring to as the Piedmont Triad region, with the exception of Montgomery, and then they go up and a little bit into the mountains. But so Davidson is within Second Harvest service area, and I mean, I actually used to work at Second Harvest when we started this assessment. I worked there, and with the pandemic, they've just been probably the busiest they've been ever. So I think they would love to connect and see how they can be a resource.
You're welcome to send me an email as well, and
okay.
I can follow up.
We have food pantries in Cooley and Bixby.
Right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just want to mention, Cindy Chapman, our budget director, is on the Cooperative Extension Advisory Council, and they have a rotating farm school that rotates to different communities every year, and Davie County is hosting it this year. So that may be a wonderful resource for some small farmers in not only in Davie County, but in our region. There is a cost involved. But my understanding is a lot of very useful information and provides a lot of resources for those, farmers that are looking to expand into new territory, or someone that's considering, becoming a small farmer. So certainly encourage folks to take advantage of that, particularly since it's here in Davie County.
Thank you. All right, we move to our next presentation, which is the strategic plan for the library, the 5-year plan. And Derek, I'll ask you to come up and.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come speak today. So this plan that we worked on, I actually was able to get a grant for this during COVID. We received a grant to come up with a new strategic plan for the library to move the library forward from 2021 to 2026. Just real quick, the executive summary overview. We conducted a survey with the community. And what we did was we sent out flyers. We sent out, we actually had people in the library fill out some assessments, so that way we could determine what exactly the needs of the community were. We collected over 440 surveys, 200 of which were from random surveys that we mailed out to the community members. And we also took 10 years of our performance data from what we've done from fiscal year 2029, for the past 10 years. And then what we did was we compared those to other libraries in the state to compare similar counties' libraries with what we have with our community members, so our population size. And what we did was we took that information to analyze for trends and compare them, so that way we can make sure that we're keeping in lines with what other communities are doing in the surrounding areas. And so what we identified were some trends was Davie County had a population growth of approximately 4%. So the county grew from roughly 41,000 community members to 43,000 community members. We also increased our materials and our circulation. So what we did was we increased our audiovisual materials by 127%. We increased our ebook materials by 15%, and the circulation of those ebooks increased 205%. Our electronic materials usage increased 389%. We did have a decrease in our physical item circulation by approximately 18%. And the total librarians that we have working at the library, we had from 3 full-time employees to 6 full-time employees. And we also increased total staff with part-time from 9 to 12 employees. And then our registered users, we also found that we had an increase from 21% of the population to 62% of the population of Davie County. And our library increase of visits was 5% for the past 10 years. So some of our strengths is we have a well-trained staff that's able to connect with the community to provide them with the services that they need. They also have ties with the community, and the library also serves as a hub for the community, for a place to go to that's either not work or home, but also a place to go to meet with people and also look for information, find resources for whatever they need. Some of our weaknesses, we have a lack of space available, so that way we are not able to separate different areas with the teen area, the children's area, and the adult area. We also lack in the programming needs of the community, and we also lack engagement from the youth and the teens and our community outreach. Some of our opportunities that we have is orienting new staff, a need to increase the budget, increase materials for teens, improve the teen area, have a stronger print collection, increase our technology that we have available for the community, and provide more outreach for community members that can't come into the library. Some of the threats that we've assessed was that there is a possibility of closing to the public again from COVID, over-reliance on digital resources. We have an aging out of our regular patrons. The library is not keeping up with the times. Also the possibility of staying too small and underfunded, and then also being welcoming but not relevant to the community. So where we're ahead with other surrounding areas, and this is a 50 to 75 percentile of the entire state, is we have a great children's programming that we have for the community. We also have the most available computers for the community members to come in and use. And then we also have the large electronic book collection in our collection. And then the areas that we need to improve, where we're at the 25 percentile or lower, is funding, print book holdings, percentage of adult programmings, and then of course, because COVID impacted, our circulation of materials and our program attendance. So the needs of the community that we've assessed was having a community hub, so we can serve as a place and space for the community members, and have trained that staff, or have staff that's well trained and available to support the needs of the community. We also want to try to renew the community relationship, so that way we stay relevant with the communities, and that way we can remove the idea of that the library is antiquated and not necessary. and then also offer fun and specialized programming for the community, and model library from larger state-of-the-art library systems in the areas. So the priorities of the libraries, we want to continue focusing on literacy, so that way we can focus with lifelong learning as well as developmental learning literacy. And then we also want to expand our digital content and online programming. Of course, we want to increase our foot traffic, and one of the ways that we can do that is make the library more attractive to the community and collaborate with groups that complement the library goals. And our outreach, we want to engage with the community and then collaborate with groups that complement the library goals. We also want to try to expand with our technology to provide community with technology they can't currently get access to at home, so such as laptops and broadband, providing technology like that they can actually check out and take home. And then, of course, we also want to work on trying to get smart locker systems and self-checkout machines, so that way we're also keeping up with the other communities and needs. And then we want to try to create an inviting space, so that way people feel welcome when they come into the library. We want to establish a strong curb appeal for the community members and update the look inside the building, as well as offer other services like community coffee and things like that for the community members that come into. We will also want to push for the smart lockers, so that way we can reach the community members where they can't actually physically come to the library for whatever the reason. We want to try to meet the community where they are. And then, of course, provide programming that's beneficial to the community members and meets the needs of them. So opportunities for improvement, of course, we want to advance our technology, so that way we're keeping competitive with other community members or with other surrounding counties. So that way we're providing a service to the community that they need. We also want to make sure that we provide a stable leadership. There's been an influx over the years. We want to try to maintain our staff by making sure that they're well-trained and give them opportunities to stay in the library system in the county. And then we want to expand on our outreach for the community members. So some of the community priorities is we want to try to move more towards a fine-free library. So that way what we can do is open up the library to other community members that are often hard impacted with their personal funds. We want to support education in the schools, so that way we're able to provide other opportunities. Of course, COVID has changed the way that students learn in school, so we're kind of the place that people go to try to get assistance with getting help with school and finding resources for projects in schools. And then we also want to preserve and share the county, the Davie County history. Davie County has a rich cultural history that we want to try to make sure that we're preserving and making available to the community members. And then also trying to provide a guide tours for of course, Daniel Boone, so that way that could be a good way for the community to provide or to earn a source of income for the county. And then, do I have any questions?
I have a few. How many workstations do you have at the library?
Currently, we have 3. So we have our circulation team, we have our youth services, and then we have our adult services. We do have a teen area, although it's relatively small, but we don't have a staff member there to actually help with the teen areas.
So the people that are coming to use the workstations, do you have any idea how much of it's lack of access to hardware and how much of it's lack of broadband?
Most of the community members that come in are using the computers. I don't have an exact number of how many people come in and use them, but I would say it's about 50% of people that are either checking out books or using the computers to access information online.
Yeah, I'm asking specifically about the computers. Just curious if they're coming because they don't have hardware availability or they don't have broadband.
That's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Either a lot of people do have the smartphones, but they don't have the internet at home. And then, of course, a lot of the stuff that they're trying to use the computers for, they don't have access to at home for, like, applying for jobs and things like that. So I'd say it's relatively even with that.
And then 50% of your foot traffic is utilizing Those computers?
Yes, sir. Either the computers or they're using the Wi-Fi connections that we have available.
How many computer stations do you have?
We have, I believe, 15 in the Knoxville Library, and then in the Coolme Library, we have, I believe it's 3.
Are the ones at Coolamy equally used?
Yes, and with Coolme, most of the people that come in to use the library are accessing the technology that we have there.
You mentioned a lack in physical circulation. Is that, do you think that's due to COVID, or do you think that's just due to digital, computers and digitalization of media?
As far as, I might need you to
You mentioned a lack of of your physical circulation. You're missing a decrease. Is that from COVID? Do you
Yes,
feel?
over the
Or is that
past
from-
year, we had a dramatic decrease of usage because of COVID, because we had people that were afraid to come into the library, especially at the very beginning. We actually are still operating at about, I'd say about 75% of what we were pre-COVID conditions.
Thank you.
Derek, could you just go in a little bit more detail? I know you've talked about the vision of the library being a resource to borrow other things besides books and audio tapes. Could you just explain that a little bit more and maybe give some examples of other libraries that are going in that direction?
Sure. So places like Iredell County and Rowan County are offering places like maker spaces where they're providing 3D printers, other types of software that people can access that they typically can't access from home because of the expense that it costs. Also, they'll have technology to check out, like the hotspots or laptops that they can actually physically check out and take home. And a lot of the students are using those with the school systems, so that way they can do homework and work on projects, especially during COVID conditions.
But not just technology, but I mean, your concept is to offer other things besides technology for folks to borrow to, correct?
Yes, so a lot of them are, like I said, with the computers. They're also taking home stuff like like coding. They have coding clubs that they can check out materials and take home in order to do practical application with the school systems that they learn. And I can't think of everything else off the top of my head, but those are just some of the things that they are actually have access to in other counties.
Okay, any other questions, comments? So this is the 5-year plan, so we do need to go ahead and formalize this, so entertain a motion to accept the plan as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. That is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that was a lot of work. I know you've been working on that with the gentleman from UNCG for quite some time, so Dr.
We have
Chow,
worked
I
on
think-
that for a little over a year now.
Yeah.
We were awarded that grant back in, I believe, July during COVID, and then we've been working on that since. And yes, it was a long project, but we were pretty happy with the outcome and the feedback that we got from the community, especially the data that we were able to collect. We were not expecting to get those kind of numbers during COVID.
And Derek, you said Dr. Chow has moved on to a new opportunity, I believe, in California.
Yes, he's now, I believe, head of the Department for the Library Studies in San Jose University. And he runs his own business for the strategic performance systems.
All right. All right, I think, Derek, you have another presentation on the fine policy.
Yes, sir. So one of the one of the things that we had in our strategic plan was for the library to move to fine-free. So what we've seen in the, I'm sorry, I thought this was. So what we've seen is some negative impacts from fines. A lot of the times when people collect fines on their accounts, they usually typically keep those materials and don't return them. So then we have to go and try to find those materials again and spend time and energy and money to try to replace those items. Some of the other things that can come out with going fine-free is a goodwill to the community. It shows good faith for the community to be able to still access libraries and use materials that we have. And then it's also a cost reduction. So we, like I said, we have to spend a lot of time and energy with printing out paper and then with our postage and then sending out, of course, the notices. We typically have to send out a week notice, a 2-week notice, a month notice, and then a 2-month notice. And then, of course, a final notice when we haven't received those after 60 days. They go into the lost, they go into a lost status. We're also trying to align with the county's mission in order to make in order to improve the quality of life for the community. So some of the unintended consequences, of course, it's a higher cost for the county. So roughly, we spend about 2 hours a week with staff trying to fill out those paperwork and send them out. We roughly get about 10 to 50 notices out a day. And then, of course, when we have the cost for the postage, we have about $800 for postage and other materials with the envelopes and with the paper that we use. And then, of course, the cost for staff time is about roughly $4,500. And this is, of course, over the entire fiscal year. And then what we receive back for the revenue is roughly $2,000 for the fiscal year. We also have an unsuccessful return of items. As I said earlier, a lot of the community members will just keep those items and won't return them because the fine gets so much that they essentially think that they've already paid for it, so they should just keep it. And then the impact on the patrons is they can't access the library's materials, or they can't access any of the technology that we provide for them to improve their quality of life, like trying to apply for jobs. And then, of course, there's a negative customer service experience where they're not able to, excuse me, especially during COVID, we had a lot of community members that needed access to computers to apply for jobs or apply for some type of living assistance that were not able to use those because of the fines were over $5. Some of the benefits that we see of a fine-free library is we're able to provide a better service, and what we can do is we'll be able to utilize that time that we have spent with sending out the notices. We can provide better programming for the community members. We can spend more time with doing resource sharing and boxing up the materials and sending them out, and of course receiving them and getting them ready for the community members. It aligns with the mission of the county and the library in order to provide a better quality of life for the community. It also will increase the return of materials because, like I said, a lot of times when people have those books out, when they get over that $5 threshold and they can't use the library anymore, our chances of getting that book back decrease dramatically. And then, of course, we can utilize our better time of resources where we can, we can provide better programming for the community, and we also get a renewed appreciation from the county patrons.
I have one quick question, if you don't mind, just to clarify in my mind here. Did you just say that you're spending just in labor cost $4,500
Yes, sir.
on an annual basis, plus hard cost postage and paper to collect $2,000?
Yes, sir.
And that's documented?
I can get that paperwork for you, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So what we're proposing is to eliminate just the cost of late fees. So that way what we would do is we would not charge people for, I believe it's 10 cents a day for each item that's out. So what that will do is eliminate that $5 threshold so people can still use the library, and they will eventually return those items without having to worry about that, without accumulating a hefty fine. And what we would do is just charge for lost items and damaged materials. Lost items will, as I said earlier, items go into lost status after 60 days that they've been checked out of the library and have not been returned. And then any damaged materials that comes back, we assess that as the materials come back. We would try to set up an auto renewal with the NC Cardinal, so that way if they don't return the item right away, the item can be renewed. However, we will not be able to do that for any items that we have that there's a hold for somebody else to check out. And then we would block the accounts if the books do not get returned after that 2 weeks. And then, of course, when they go into that lost status, they would stay on block status until those items get returned within that 60 days.
And you may not have this specifically, what's your dollar figure on lost materials, lost books, whatever?
I have that information. You were asking before about, yes, it's really $4,500. We did time estimates of what he's talking about of, a few hours a week. It takes staff time, not to mention, it looks like when they bring the deposit up, somebody's emptied out their piggy bank. So $4,500 is only his staff time, not our staff time or the bank staff time, of counting all that change to get those lost fees. So of the $200,000 of library revenue, that's just a round number, those overdue book fees that he's talking about is only $2,000 a year or 1% of his income. And we estimate, $4,500 and about $800 of office supplies, paper, envelopes, postage, that kind of thing that we can reallocate to another place, so.
The lost materials.
And the lost materials fees are about an average of $250 a year, plus we'll get lost materials processing fees of $3,800 a year.
No, how much inventory?
Oh,
or
how much
have- yeah,
inventory
yeah,
do
I
you
mean,
lose, do you know that?
No, I don't have those numbers with me, but I can get them.
It's okay. I mean, I think the plan you've laid out here would probably be as effective as what you're losing trying to recoup those.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like, you're spending a quarter to chase a nickel, basically, is the equivalent. But, we're not saying we're going to have a library free-for-all where, we're throwing books out and that kind of thing. That there'll still be, amounts that we can fine people for not returning materials
You're
eventually.
going to block the account, right?
Correct, yes. Mhm.
So, Derek, could you just briefly go over the policy itself and go over that timetable a little bit as far as replacement? When would you start to try to collect a replacement cost for that book? I believe it was 60 days.
Yes, sir. It would be after the book is not returned after 60 days, then we would, of course, have to collect the fees for the books to be replaced. And that would also cost a $5 processing fee for any lost items. And that's for each item that's lost, that's put into lost status.
But your remedy, if they don't comply, is to block their account. And basically, they're not in good standing until they straighten up with you.
Correct, until they return the items if it's within that 60 days. If they return the item within 60 days, then we, of course, won't charge for the lost item. It's only after that 60 days that we have to charge a lost material and processing fee. And of course, they would have to take care of that account after the 60 days.
And Derek, in that scenario, they're just not allowed to borrow materials. They could still visit the library, correct?
Yes, they can still visit the library, and we would be able to possibly allow them to use the computers.
They just can't check out items.
Correct.
All right, any other questions on this proposed policy? We do need to take action on this, so entertain a motion to accept the policy as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. That is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next we move to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions about that? Comments? If not,
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
motion and a second. All in favor? Well, any other further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented, raise your hand. That passes. Next, we move to the county manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to say, in regards to COVID, according to the CDC website today, 24,224 residents of Davie County have received at least the first dosage. So I hadn't looked at those numbers in a while, so that's certainly encouraging. That represents 56.5% of the population, and then 65% of the population over 12 years of age. Immunocompromised individuals may receive a third dose of Pfizer or Moderna. That guidance is changing daily, but and so we want to provide that information as rapidly as possible. They do have to meet certain criteria. Those individuals that are immunocompromised should contact their healthcare providers for more guidance and direction and to schedule an appointment. And of course, Davie County Health and Human Services is providing those third dose shots. So there is a distinction between third dose and boosters. The CDC has approved COVID-19 boosters of Pfizer. Individuals may now get a booster shot at our Health and Human Services if it's been at least 6 months since their second Pfizer shot and if they meet other criteria. Citizens may call Davie County Health and Human Services at 336-753-6779 if they have questions about booster shots or if they would like to schedule an appointment. Flu vaccines are also now available at Health and Human Services. Changing subject away from public health, Davie County has begun a community engagement initiative to get input from the public in an effort to update the county's strategic goals and budgeting priorities. We had a really good turnout last week at our Community Conversations event. That was the kickoff event for this initiative. We had 46 participants. So particularly during COVID environment, we feel very strong about getting a participation level of that size. We got a lot of good feedback. And for the next step, we're going to have 5 focus groups over the next few weeks for different individuals to participate in. As you're aware, Davie County will transition to Partners from Cardinal Health Innovations on November 1st. Partners is a local management entity, managed care organization, or referred to by the acronym LME-MCO, a governmental entity which manages the county's mental health, intellectual, developmental disability, and substance use services. A Davie County LME-MCO realignment committee was established by this board, and its role is to help facilitate input and feedback from subject matter experts and assist in this transition. The second meeting of that group will be this Wednesday, October 6th. Partners is holding a series of virtual events through October for residents of Forsyth and Davie counties impacted by this November 1st transition. More information and a link to the registration for these partners events is available on our county website. In partnership with Davie County Health, Contegra recently opened its family medicine clinic at the Government Center, and their services include adult well sickness care, diabetes and chronic disease management, preventive care, and behavioral health counseling. Medicaid and Medicare and private insurances and uninsured patients are welcome. The co-location of this facility brings increased access and continuity of care for the residents of our county. Davie County Health currently operates a pediatric medical clinic in the building, and the addition of the Contegra's family medicine practice provides a full complement of medical and behavioral health care to families in need of these services. The Davie County Cooperative Extension staff have a 2020 Report to the People report and video available online. This provides highlights of the 2020 year in review. A link to the Cooperative Extension website is on the county website. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. Please let me know if you have any questions.
All right, anybody have any questions for Mr. Bone?
I have a question. So in the follow-up community meetings, the focus group meetings, how have we advertised that?
So, Cindy, could you come to the podium? So we've got Cindy Chapman, our budget director, is taking the lead on that, and I certainly defer to her to answer that more capably than I could.
Okay, I have a total of how many people we have signed up for those. We actually have been doing a direct contact with people, sending by emails. We've worked with Cooperative Extension to get farmers and their emails. We've worked with the Chamber to get business leaders. We've talked with nonprofits. So I have a huge list of folks that we have tried to contact to see if they would be interested. There's 5 different focus groups. The first one will be held tomorrow, and it's parents of young and school-age children. So far, I have 6 couples signed up for that, and our goal is to have 10 to 12 participants in each group. So I feel good about that one.
So we have only 6 couples representing all the school-age children of Davie County.
At this point, these are small focus groups, so we are trying to keep it to 10 to 12 participants. So that is like.
So
10 to
6
12
couples would be 12, which is what the counselors, the consultant's suggestion.
October 6th, we're having another group called Bridging Generations. On that one, if you have any suggestions for this, we are trying very hard to get young adults, high school kids or community college students. We have very few people signed up for this, but we are making it available at the senior center so that we can have a viewing there and zoom in from there. I've been to the senior center trying to drum up some participants, and several people said they might be willing to participate, so I'm going to actually be there on site. That one's at 11:30 a.m. on Wednesday, so I'm hoping to have several people to join from that, and then we do have 3 or 4 other people, but I really do need some young adults to participate in that. October 7th, I have Underserved Voices, and we're still trying to get folks to sign up for that one too. This could be underserved in lots of different areas. It could be minority, it could be socioeconomic, it could be language barrier, it could be mental health, just lots of different things. So we are trying to get more folks to sign up for that one.
How are we doing that? I mean, how are we trying to reach these people?
I have been reaching out to different people in the community saying, who can I reach for this? I've talked with people from Advocacy Center and United Way and Just Hope. I've got a list of people that I've tried to contact with that one as well. And October 12th is Community Leaders, and I have 10 people signed up for that one already. And October 13th is Merchants and Business Leaders, and we have 9 so far for that one. So we are still actively trying. We've been beating the bushes trying to get people to come out to these.
And one thing is that the consultants, again, just to make sure we've got a broad spectrum of input, we're trying to recruit folks that have not participated in another event. So if they're not saying you can't participate in a focus group if you came to the open house last week, but we're certainly trying to get other folks that did not participate.
How many came to the open house?
We had 46 people there, and we were trying to get 30 to 50. The tables were pretty full. We were trying to be conscious of COVID and only put 4 people to a table, and they ended up having 6 at most tables. And I felt, as walking around to all the tables, I felt like everybody was participating. Like the tables were actually really working hard to get input from everybody around the table. And we tried to divide people up so that we wouldn't have 6 people that do the same thing. We tried to get people to interact with people they didn't know so that we could get good feedback.
Well, I actually stuck my head in the door for the last hour, even though they didn't think people would speak if we were there, which I disagreed with from the get-go, and I certainly disagreed when I saw the people that were there. Because most of the people that were in attendance were people that are already kind of in the circle, on board, as you would say. They were community leaders, they were other elected officials. It was not anyone who we don't already hear from, in my opinion. So, and that's nothing against you. I'm just saying that we're spending a lot of money on doing things like this, and I'm not sure that it's serving a purpose, because the voices that I saw in that room, we hear on a regular basis anyway. So I'm just a little concerned about that because I know this can't be cheap. And the conversation was directed. There were questions, and there was a big graph on the board. So, I mean, it wasn't what I was expecting, because I want to hear from the community at large. So.
I will say that I got very good feedback from the people in attendance. One success story, we had a gentleman that I didn't feel like was participating really well to begin with. We got him plugged into a table. He was the last person to leave that night, and he was going on and on about how great this was to have the opportunity to come out and speak. And that made me feel good. It made the folks at Fountain Works feel very good too, but.
And we have been promoting this on our website and social media and press releases as well.
So my true concern is, why will people not come and talk to us? And that's what our concern should be.
Well, one thing that we did hear loud and clear that night was that people don't know what county government does until they need us. And then they don't know where to turn. So we even had something say, why don't you mail out a newsletter every quarter to every resident in Davie County?
I heard that at my table too, by the way.
Yes, and, that sounds great. That's very
expensive.
costly. And I know when I get election papers in the mail, they go straight in the garbage can. So I'm kind of wondering if that's what would happen if we did that. We do have some other things we've talked about around the table, though, some alternatives to maybe get the word out.
So it certainly spurs conversation, and as Cindy said, it may not be that specific suggestion, but there may be other ways that we can address that.
I think we really need to think about this money we're spending for such a low turnout.
And so the 6 couples tomorrow, they were not at the initial.
I will have to look. I think one of them was. But I think that's all.
Well, and let me,
Where did how did you assimilate these people? I mean, where did you get them? Are they
These parents.
from the school system, or?
I've talked with
You
the
know.
school system, reached out to Surfboard. We're trying to get some folks from Surfboard, the students there, to participate. We've reached out, like I said, to Chamber of Commerce.
Well, tomorrow, I'm talking about tomorrow.
For tomorrow, the parents of young school-age children, yes, we've reached out to basically everybody that I know.
a lot of different organizations that we've asked for suggestions, people to serve. So it's been a broad spectrum of invitations.
But it wasn't just publicly put out
It was publicly,
for the parents.
or
No, it
the
was not
community conversation, the community conversation.
Community Conversations was, but we tried to direct these so that, we are trying to get 10 to 12. So
Right.
we're not trying to get 30 or 40 at these Zoom meetings.
These are, intention is to be more of an intimate conversation with a small group. And as far as participation, again, the consultants were suggesting, that 30 would be a good number, and we had, 50% more than that. So we feel very good about the size, the participation at the open house, and, I think, the focus group numbers are coming together.
Well, if you don't have any young people signed up for Wednesday, then I doubt you're going to get any. So, but
We're still trying. Don't give up till the last minute.
Cindy's doing a great job with this, and, really taking a strong leadership in this. And first of all, I want to thank her for her efforts, but I think there's going to be some good benefit from this. And so look forward to receiving the report from our consultants.
This is not anything against Cindy. I know Cindy's doing a good job. My concern is, are we really getting the information that we need, or are we getting the information that we're looking for?
We are trying to do what we can to get folks that have not been engaged. So we're trying to get new people to the table.
And the thing that would not, I'm not necessarily concerned about whether they've been engaged or whether they haven't. Those that have been engaged have an investment in the community. What I'm concerned about is the realm of communication. In other words, those 6 young couples, are they diverse? And I don't mean in skin color. I mean in, we have folks who at low socioeconomic levels. We have people that homeschool. We have people that go to private school. We have people that are in public school. So are we assimilating those voices, or are we just putting out a cattle call and we're maybe not getting a diversity of opinion or thought? That's just kind of my
Right.
thinking.
Yes, we are. We are trying to reach homeschool parents and school age, and even kids that are not in school yet, parents with young children. So we're all of the above.
And again, this has been put on public record as well as the website, correct?
Yes,
No,
the
it's not.
effort in general, the community open house that we had last week, we are reaching out more to different partners, different groups to try to get folks for the focus groups, because we do have a limited amount of people that is best suited for a focus group, and that's about 10 to 12.
We're not publicly put out there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Bone or the county manager, about the county manager's report? Okay, any old business to come before us this evening? Any new business to come before us this evening? Okay, all right, we'll move to commissioners' comments. We'll start with Mr. Poindexter.
I'd just like to say thank you to everybody on the board for the discussion we've had tonight. That's a part of our public duty to hear from the audience and hear from the public and discuss it here. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. Especially, I see we have a group of young ladies back here, and I'd like to thank y'all for coming out. And I'd like to thank all of our county employees for the hard work that they do for the people of this county. Thank you.
Ms. Finney.
I'm going to keep it short tonight for a change. I want to say thank you to all the fire departments that have welcomed all of us into their departments so far for visits, and we'll be doing more. I think we're learning a lot, and we're enjoying getting to know them better. I want to give a huge congratulations to Miss Ellen Drexler, who retired last week as our clerk of court. Ellen had served this county in some capacity or another for 36 years. She has served the citizens of this county, and I just want to thank her for her service.
All right, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just thank everyone for being here tonight. It's been we've got a lot of really good information. I really appreciate all of the input we got. I especially want us to really focus as a community on these our small family farms, and this is not something that is this is not a small issue, folks. America has fed the world, and now we're having trouble feeding ourselves. And a lot of that is just getting government out of the way. Now, I won't get into all that, but I think we have to focus. We just have to focus on on feeding, taking care of ourselves and taking care of our country and feeding our population. So thank you for being here and bringing that information to us tonight. I want to thank Manager Bone and our health community folks that have done a great deal to get our community vaccinated. But I also want to say this. Getting a vaccination is a choice. And so I think, as a county, we have to be prepared to support our businesses and support our local citizens, and at some point be ready to speak out against the mandatory vaccine policies that in my opinion, radically proposed by the President of the United States. And so I encourage folks that choose to be vaccinated. But government should stay out of the way, and we have. The first call I made was to our county manager and other commissioners, and we're unified in this position that we need to encourage folks to be vaccinated, but we do not mandate folks to be vaccinated. And so I appreciate all the work that's going on to make our county healthy and safe, and we'll continue to do that. But let's do it in a reasonable way. And so thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Blakely.
Appreciate everyone coming out tonight, especially appreciate Mr. Gallimore and his staff for what you put on tonight. Again, that hits home to me and a lot of the concerns that I've heard from folks, and that hopefully is going to take away from some of the phone calls and some of your time. And also I appreciate the PTRC information as well. As somebody that was raised on a small farm, it hits home, and I can promise you that local is better. It always has been. So we want to promote that. Again, thanks for everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. As far as the presentation of PTRC, Commissioner Jones mentioned that we lost our last dairy farm here recently. And in 1972, Mr. Walker, you might have to help me with this, but I'm pretty sure in 1972, the largest employer in the county was dairy farms. And we have 0 today in, less than 50 years. So, that just shows the changing landscape of Davie County, and as we've talked about for some time, as urban continues to meet rural, we're going to have more challenges. So that the plight of the family farm is going to be something we're going to continue to talk about and be faced with. So anyway, I'm going to say about the vaccines, I agree with what Commissioner Jones said. I'm going to say this out of love and out of compassion. It's your choice, but for the love of God, talk to your medical professional or whoever you trust and make sure you're making an informed decision. But I will defend your right to make that decision until the end. But let's make sure that we're getting the proper professional advice and not your favorite talking head on 24/7 News Network. So, but again, I say that out of love and out of compassion because this thing is real. With that, we do have a closed session, and once again, I have to read this, so bear with me. All right, we'll entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A5 to establish or to instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating 1, the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or 2, the amount of compensation and other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract. The property is located at, it's known as the Moxville Moose Lodge. It's located at 1154 South Salisbury Street, Moxville, North Carolina, 27028. The purpose that, for this would be the future expansion of the Davie County Community Park. Would someone like to make the motion to go into closed session?
I'll make that motion.
Motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. All right, we will be back in here after the closed session. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in a minute.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
We got to welcome the media first. Okay. Back in open session. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Adjourn. Thank you.